Had some technical problems. Okay. The future, the solution. How is season 3 going to go? Now, there are a couple of options. The simplest option is they go to the future, they're stuck there, they spend the rest of the time there dealing with local problems, kind of like Voyager, lost in time space basically, and they are just they can have small season-long stories that just focus on one story, like they wanted to do with Discovery, but they kept getting sucked into canon and the larger Starfleet issues and that, and wars and that. And that I think would be a nice way to go. They can focus on just the characters and interesting science fiction stories, and they can plot out and drag out the stories over whole arcs and do it really well. They could do that, or if they fix the problem of control, then they won't be stuck in a future with Michael's mum, which is full of destroyed, all sentient life is destroyed. So Starfleet, not 20, I don't know what century, 30th century or whatever, century Starfleet would be there. So will they just interact with them? Will it be a Enterprise J or whatever number the Enterprise would have been that series, that era? There are ways they can go with that, or they can have them not going where they're supposed to and they end up in a different time. And there's so many ways they could fuck this up. There are so many ways they could really make a mess out of this. And I'm kind of afraid because when I hear the descriptions of the Picard show, which was presented originally as an antidote to Discovery, it was going to be next gen era, it was going to be set in the next gen future, there wouldn't be any canon issues, it wouldn't be a prequel, and everyone was like, yay, all the next gen fans were like, yes, we're going to get Picard back, we're going to have a continuation of the next gen, and no, it's not. It's going to be the JJ Prime, not canon universe, probably after all the time faffing that Discovery has caused, and Picard is not going to be the Picard we know. He's not in Starfleet, and from the sounds of it, he's some sort of archaeological Indiana Picard, and he's got a group of rogue rebels and renegades on a ship that he's commissioned, running around having adventures. That's how it was originally explained. And then, those were the leaks and what was suggested it was going to be. And then people started talking that he's going to be the director of Section 31, and that he's going out on behalf of Section 31 to do all these clandestine things with these renegades and rogues. And it's sounding a lot like the Star Trek series Renegades, which they tried to pitch as an actual series to CBS. They, as part of the fan outreach program at the time, they had them come in and do a pitch for their series as an actual series for CBS. They said no, but it looks like they're kind of doing that with Picard and doing that as Section 31 as well. And that worries me because the other thing that was pitched by somebody was Star Trek Federation, where basically it's a dystopian future. The Federation has imploded because, of course, they hate Star Trek. They hate the Star Trek future, the Star Trek universe, where everything is good and right, and we fix all the problems. Humanity has evolved. We don't have the problems we have today. It's something to strive for, evolve towards, aspire to, enjoy, escape to, want to be a part of. But they seem to hate that. They seem to want us all to be just focused on war and hating each other and small, trivial, just current time problems and just the current gritty, dirty reality we live in the moment, instead of the future, the evolved future that Gene Roddenberry created. They seem to want to keep us in that. So, of course, the only way to do that is to destroy the Federation, have it implode, because it couldn't exist. We can't have good things because we're basically horrible and we're just going to destroy ourselves. And that nihilistic, dystopian sci-fi, and it's got its place in science fiction, but I don't get anything from it. And Star Trek was the antidote to that. Star Trek was the show that was positive and different. So I'm afraid they're going to go in that direction. They're going to pop up in the future and the Federation's destroyed because they've destroyed themselves because they all deserved it because they're a bunch of evil white men, and they've been put in their place, and now they have to rebuild Starfleet, which was sort of the pitch of the other show. So I'm worried about the cynical, paranoid Star Trek fan who's been listening to too many haters and doing their videos, says they've fucked up the future, they've fucked up our future, their past, they're going to go into the future and they'll fuck up their own future. They've destroyed the TOS era. Now they're going to go destroy the next gen or the post next gen era. And either way, they seem to be about killing Star Trek, destroying Star Trek, making it dark, dystopian, nasty, just all the things season 1 of Discovery was. They wanted to replace Star Trek with that universe, and the fans said no. The merchandisers couldn't sell anything. It failed on one level, and they didn't get the kind of response and money from it that they wanted. So now they are. It seems as though they are retconning and changing things. But Kurtzman still has his nihilistic little dream of he hates Star Trek. He grew up on Star Wars and other science fiction, and he wants to make it into something ugly and different from what it should be. So that, if he's in charge, or I just am scared of where it could go, because they've got the freedom now. They can put Discovery wherever they want in any situation, and if there's no direct canon links, they can do whatever they want, and no one can say that's wrong, that doesn't fit. So that they could just go totally to the dark side with this, or they can go the opposite way and just create their own happy little show that works without having to be pushing back against the fan expectations of the original series and the original Star Trek. So I don't know where it's going to go, but and I hate it when fans talk about their theories and how they think it's going to go, like they're in the writer's room and they know anything. And I get that I'm doing that right now. I'm that annoying fan online thinking I know what they're going to do and everything, but we've seen enough in 2 seasons and 3 films from Kurtzman and that the direction that they have gone in, the things they do aspire to, they talk about Star Trek and its ideals in a way that is supposed to appease us fans on some level, but then they go and do the complete opposite almost every time. And then they ask us to trust them. They say they're going to explain everything, all the canon issues are going to be resolved by the end of the 2nd season. No, you took the ship out of the equation, which resolves some issues because obviously it's not talked about, it's not present. Their technology and the things that come from them just being active in Starfleet don't happen, but they still existed. They still affect all the things in their time period when they were around. None of that is resolved, and none of the inconsistencies between the characters and that are resolved. Outside of if this isn't the canon, because they're calling it Prime. We know Prime is the TOS of the JJ films, but not our actual TOS era. So I don't know, it's just such a mess. It's so hard to work it out and talk about it because there's so many lies and misinformation from the production team, and there's all the press and PR and BS from CBS All Access, because they just want you to believe it's a good show and buy it, even if it's bad. They don't care. They don't even know what they're selling. The merchandisers the rumour is the merchandisers are not happy because they obviously haven't been making any money with, because it's a fact. You can go and look, there's nothing on the shelves. There's like 2 or 3 Star Trek Discovery products and that's it, as opposed to all the other Star Treks have cups, mugs, models, just freaking everything. And I think all Discovery has is a couple of books from Titan, some badges, some pins, and I think there's a basic costume. I don't know if that got released. I saw pictures for a costume. I don't know if it got released. I know the Phaser got cancelled, which kills me because they were the only good thing about the whole series production, because they, to me, looked just like the Phasers in the original series and the communicators and all that. I would love to have had those. And I have the props from all the series, the toys of the props from all the series. So I was welcoming them. That's why I bought my badge, which I just realised I should be wearing because I'm talking about Discovery. I normally wear my little badge. But that's the only merchandise I bought from the series, because it's a completionist thing. You have the badges, you want all the ones from the different eras. And that, just like the Eagle Moss starships, which are on demand, not mainstream produced, they're the only things that are selling, and Star Trek needs to make its money from merchandise. And they're not doing that. So that side of things are now holding to account the creative side of things, because obviously what they're doing is not appealing to the mainstream fans, and the new fans do not follow Star Trek in the same fanatical way the old fans do. They don't buy the merchandise, they don't support it that way. They watch it once, go, ooh, that's awesome, and then forget about it. And I know this because I know a lot of people who are, I mention Star Trek and they talk about Discovery, and I'm like, oh, what did you buy? Where did you go? What conventions have you been to? What merchandise do you have? Do you have the Blu-ray? Do you have the DVD? Did you watch it? How many times have you watched it? And they're like, I watched it on Netflix. And then it ended and I went to the next show and I'm like, okay, that's that's the level of fandom en masse we're dealing with. And then you have the people who attach themselves to it on an emotional level and will defend it no matter what factual, literal things you point out that are wrong with it, because there can be problems with a show. There are problems with Star Trek V, but it's one of my favourite films. There are problems with Star Trek 1, but it's my favourite Star Trek film. There are problems with it, and I can talk about those and still love it. But these people, they're just like, no, I can't even get into that. I'm going to do a video on toxic fans versus toxic studios and some of the fan dynamics, because it's a very, if you can't, it's very interesting if you try and look at it from the outside. If you get too involved in it, it becomes really ugly. But have I gone through all my points? Because I've written notes. Because every time I try and put notes on my laptop in some sort of display so I can just watch it while I'm talking, it always shuts down and it will not open back up for me. So it's not like I'm a total Neanderthal. I do understand there's ways to prepare notes and stuff, but I literally just have paper sitting on my lap and my pen. But yeah, I think I've covered everything. Yeah, I'm afraid they're going to destroy the future. They could do a nice isolated little series that doesn't affect anything else and just explore their characters, and that would be great. They could do that for a season or two. No one would care. It wouldn't have the same kind of issues that Discovery had, where it was being attacked every week because it didn't fit into the world it was trying to be a part of. That's it. What do you think? What are other people thinking? I know I've listened to a lot of interviews, and I have watched a lot of videos and read a few It's totally divided. People either love it on very superficial levels, or they hate it on the smallest little intellectual nitpicky levels, and both ignore the other. The Star Trek fans who hate it ignore the good qualities, and the Star Trek fans who love it dismiss all the actual legitimate complaints. So that's not being resolved anytime soon. It's like Star Trek Star Wars, it's going to go forever. But yeah, I'm going to do a separate video on news and that, because there's a little bit of news, and on Picard there's some cast members but they've been announced, and there's talk of starting production in June. So we'll see where that goes, and there's some talk that maybe they could do a Pike series later, that they have heard there's a want for it, but they haven't gotten, it's not yet. But there's also short treks. Is it going to be part of that? Could it be part of the animated? It's all over the place, but that's how I felt about the final after having some time to sit and reflect and listen to other people. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Feel free to subscribe, like, any advice and any comments are useful and interesting. Thanks. Bye.